We're going to start this meeting. This is the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I'm Council Member Chairperson Jose Huizar, been joined by Marquise Harris-Dawson and Mitch Englander. We'll start off by going through the multiple agenda item comment cards that we have. We have none. We will now go through the consent and continuation portion of the agenda. On consent, unless there are speaker cards or item number 3, we'll pull that from the consent calendar. Item number 5, we'll keep that on consent. Item number 5, we'll approve without objection on consent. Item number 6, we'll approve without objection on consent. Okay, and items number 8 and 9. Well, let's do this. Can you read both of those into the record, please?
Sure.
Mr. CLA.
Items 8 and 9 are interrelated, Councilman. Item 8 is the appeal on the track map. There's one appellant on the record. This is a mixed-use project for 145 units in CD5. Item 9 is the other land use entitlements, the general plan amendment, the zone change, the high district change, and there's 2 appellants on file, same property address.
Okay, on items 8 and 9, we will continue to January 18th. That is next Wednesday, correct? No, we are going to move the Plum Committee for next week till Wednesday. We will reschedule it from the 17th to the 18th. So this item will be continued till then, to the 18th. Okay. Items 8 and 9. By the way, what college you go to?
One you did. It's in the Bay Area, Little College.
Cal, right?
Yes.
Who did they play this weekend in basketball?
USC.
They beat them?
Yes, I think they did.
Good job. All right. 1 point. All right, now we'll go to the action items. And item number 1, which is a report from the Director of Planning. Welcome.
Thank you.
I didn't recognize you there. Got your
you.
winter coat on, huh?
Thank you, Chair Huizar, members of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, Vince Bertoni, Director of City Planning. A few items. First off, last year, at the end of last year, or last fall, the state legislature adopted really comprehensive new rules for accessory dwelling units throughout that provided certain mandates through cities and counties throughout California. The City Planning Department prepared an ordinance to comply with the new state regulations, and the City Planning Commission reviewed those recommendations and on December 15th, and have transmitted them to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. So that's something that you'll be considering one of your upcoming meetings. In terms of the single-family neighborhoods, there was a lot of activity towards the end of last year. The City Planning Commission reviewed what we call the new R1 variant zone. So there's 16 new zones for the R1 in terms of development standards instead of 1, plus an additional overlay option for them. And so we created the new zones as part of the Recode LA effort, and then applied them to 15 residential neighborhoods. So those recommendations from the City Planning Commission will be coming to you shortly. So that is basically what the new 16 different variations of an R1 zone will be, and then 15 specific neighborhoods to apply those to. In addition, at the end of last year, the City Planning Commission made recommendations regarding 5 new historic preservation overlay zones. So those together, as well as the recommended baseline mansionization and baseline hillside ordinance regulations, will all be coming to Planning and Land Use Management Committee and the full City Council shortly, and it really represents a significant step forward in terms of protecting the character of many of our unique single-family neighborhoods. With that, it concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments for our Planning Director? Thank you very much. Thank you for your report. We will receive and file item number 1. We We will now turn to item number 3. If you could read that into the record,
Sure.
please. And for the record, we've been joined by Councilmember Price. Item 3.
Item 3, Councilman, this is a motion Blumenfield Wesson, Wesson for Weezer. It's instructing Building and Safety, the Fire Department, City Planning, and the Bureau of Engineering, in consultation with the City Attorney, to report back on a fire that took place 2 years ago at an apartment complex at the juncture of the Harbor and Hollywood freeways in downtown LA.
Okay, welcome. We have one public comment card, Michelle Cam Barone.
I didn't know I'd be the first one. Thank you very much. Am I okay to go? Oh, okay. My name is Michelle Camberon. I'm a licensed structural engineer in California. I've been doing engineering for 20 years in Southern California. And I am currently with the American Wood Council, and I'm the Senior Director of Education. I'm here representing the American Wood Council, and the letter that you have in hand, hopefully, is from Dennis Richardson, my colleague who has the flu. This letter, the American Wood Council is the voice of North American wood manufacturing industry, and we develop the codes for structural wood that are adopted in the California Building Code. Over the past 2 years, American Wood Council has partnered with former California State Fire Marshal Ronnie Coleman to study construction fires and develop educational resources to help many stakeholders combat potential construction fires. The key conclusions of the study pointed at project site security and proper management. Can I continue, or?
You could finish up your thought. on
Okay,
that,
and we've worked with the community, the building community, to have some code changes enacted in the International Building Code and the International Fire Code to empower the local code officials to maintain safety at construction sites. And there have been some that have been passed that are listed in the letter that you've been provided.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's move to adopt the motion and refer it to staff to report back in 60 days. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Moving on to item number 2.
Item 2, Councilman, this is a motion of Farrell, Weezer, Harris, Dawson. It's requesting City Attorney, Planning, the Bureau of Contract Administration to report back to this committee on the implementation of the newly adopted Affordable Housing and Labor Standards Ordinance, Ordinance JJJ.
Thank you. And first, if I could thank Councilmember O'Farrell and Marquise Harris Dawson and staff for introducing this motion calling for a report on the planning and land use implications of Measure JJJ. The report on JJJ will fit into the discussion around housing production and affordable housing that we've been having in this committee as well. Just a few months ago, we discussed how to update our community plans at a pace that can keep up with our growth in the city. Planning says they can accomplish this in 10 years. We've asked to see if they can do it in 6. We've also authorized 30 positions in the department to work on our community plans, and the hiring process is currently underway. We also discussed the idea of incentivizing affordable housing and other community benefits in the immediate term via the value capture mechanism, which is critical for housing. So I think it's a nice time to kind of bring these all in when we get this back in this committee to discuss all these items in context of what else we are doing to increase the supply of affordable housing. But with that, was staff going to make a presentation on this? Yes? No?
Terry Coughlin, Missala City Attorney's Office. This motion probably should have requested the Planning Department as the lead-off and not the City Attorney, because most of these things relate to the Planning Department. Mr. Keller's here to...
The motion requested the City Attorney's Office, right?
Right.
But what you're saying is it should be both planning.
These things generally relate to planning and to some extent housing and...
Well, can we have a joint report back when this gets back to us, given the legal implications as well as the policy issues within the planning department? And if both of you can work on it, that'd be great. Okay, thank you.
Great.
Anything else you want to add to that? No?
No, we can bring it to our report. Thank you.
Okay, one of the questions I have is that in September, planning was here with options on how to streamline our community plans. I recall this committee providing instruction regarding the EIR and budgetary needs for the various update cycles. Can you let us know where this report is and when this will be coming back to us?
Absolutely. Kevin Keller, City Planning. The department has prepared a mid-year budget request outlining the requested environmental staff. I do believe we do intend to come back with a more comprehensive report on where that is in terms of the environmental options and the community plan program. We're available to do that. I know we've been working with your staff maybe later in this month or early next month, but at your discretion.
Okay, great. Well, we'll follow up with that. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we'll adopt the motion and refer to staff. And we'll hear it back in committee with a fuller report, both by the City Attorney's Office and the Planning Department. Thank you. So ordered. Item number 4.
Item 4, Councilman, this is a City Planning Commission recommended draft ordinance to establish the Oxford Square HPOC and the Oxford Square Preservation Plan in CD 10.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Bradley Faruya from the Office of Historic Resources, HPOC Unit, Department of City Planning, and I'm here to present to you the proposed Oxford Square Historic Preservation Overlay Zone, or HPOZ. Oxford Square is located in the Wilshire Community Plan area, adjacent to 3 existing HPOZs, Windsor Village to the north, Wilshire Park to the northeast, and Country Club Park to the west. Developed in 1907 along the Pico streetcar line, Oxford Square was one of the city's first streetcar suburbs. Character-defining features of the neighborhood include wide concrete streets, broad parkways lined with mature Canary Island palm trees, and large uniform setbacks with gently sloping lawns. Architecturally, Oxford Square is significant for its eclectic mix of architectural styles, most notably Tudor Revival, Colonial Revival, Spanish Colonial Revival, and Mediterranean Revival styles. Of the 191 properties within the surveyed area, 137, or 72%, were found to be contributing elements, that is, those built within the period of significance and largely intact today. The remaining 54 properties were found to be non-contributing. On September 8, 2016, the City Planning Commission adopted the Oxford Square Preservation Plan. A preservation plan summarizes the review procedures for work on homes in the district. This plan contains tailored design guidelines which were developed with a working group and respond to the unique needs and preferences of the community. The preservation plan emphasizes conformance with preservation standards on the primary facade and allows for more flexibility on the side and rear facades. The department has continued to work closely with the Oxford Square community and participated in additional meetings convened by Council President Herb Weston's office to address any remaining questions or concerns about the HPOZ. Today, you will consider the adoption of the proposed HPOZ and boundaries as reflected in the draft ordinance before you. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. We'll go to public comment now. Chris Elwell, Judy Jeanson. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Chris Elwell, President of the Oxford Square Neighborhood Association, and myself and some members of our community are just here to underscore our support for the project. We've been working on it as a community for almost 9 years. We supported the expansion of staffing for the planning department to be able to take us on as an additional HPOZ. We have conducted lots of community outreach. We have a diverse and tight community, and we are very pleased with the result that we achieved working with the planning department in terms of drafting the guidelines that we have arrived at. So we ask your support. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Judy?
Hi, my name is Judy Jeanson. I'm a resident in Oxford Square for about 8 years, maybe 9 years, I don't know. Anyway, we hope that you will pass us as a protected neighborhood. It's a cool place, and the other protected neighborhoods around us are really cool. This is as they're talking about their palm trees and big sloping lawns and they film there for 1930, 40 movies. It's, and we love it. It's the rules that we came up with, I think, are pretty flexible. They're not draconian for people. We just want to preserve the general old character of LA. So we would really appreciate you passing us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, so we will move to adopt the HPOZ. CD10, he's here. Jordan?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jordan Brew, came from Council President Herb Weston's office. We just wanted to take a quick moment to thank the Planning Department for their diligence and members of the community for help drafting the ordinance. We ask that you please move the matter along. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this? Seeing no questions or comments from the committee members, we will now move to adopt the HPOZ. Any objections? So ordered. Item number 7. Yeah.
Before we go on, let me just make an announcement. We learned that minutes ago George Lucas has decided to build his interpretive arts museum in Expo Park.
Oh, wow.
And I want to thank this committee, the mayor, the city family for all their support. This is going to be a tremendous resource and opportunity for the city of LA, for South LA, and we're just excited that the investment will be here so that our folks can really enjoy it. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're on the road. Thank you.
Good news and congratulations. Excellent. Item 7, if you could read that into the record, please.
Sure. Item 7, Councilman, this is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission relative to the inclusion of the Shepherd residence as a historic cultural monument.
Staff here? Yeah, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, council members. Ken Bernstein with the Department's Office of Historic Resources. The Shepherd residence was built in 1938 in the Bel Air neighborhood of Los Angeles, designed by noted architect William J. Gage. The residence met one of the Cultural Heritage Ordinance criteria as an excellent and highly intact example of neoclassical style residential architecture. Commission recommends the council's approval.
All right. Okay, let's listen from the applicant, Brian Leroy. And Garth Bostic afterwards. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Brian Leroy, Nixon Peabody, representing the applicant, Bel Air Residence for Preservation. I'm here with Christine Lazaretto from Historic Resources Group, which did the research on the house and prepared the report, supports the application, just in case you have any questions of her. As you heard, the house was built in 1938, designed by noted architect William Gage in the neoclassical style, and has undergone very little alteration since. Property was identified in Survey LA as eligible for designation. We're pleased the city has taken steps to ensure its preservation. We know the LA Conservancy supports us in requesting the monument status, as does the Hannah Carter family and other members of the community. We understand you received several letters in support of the designation. We're pleased that both OHR and Cultural Heritage Commission agree with us that not only does it meet the standards of the Cultural Heritage Ordinance, but that it is an excellent and highly intact example of neoclassical style residential architecture, which is rare in this community. We thank you for your consideration. And again, if you have questions of the report, Christine's available.
Great, thank you. Garth Bostic, And I think this is Stacy Brenner. Welcome.
I'm Garth Bostic, and I am here to read a letter from Marcia Hobbs. She's the chair of the Bel Air Association. This was written to the Cultural Heritage Commission in support of the designation of 626 Sienna Way, and I didn't see it on the council file, so I wanted to make sure it was read into the record now. I strongly support the designation of 626 Sienna Way as an historic cultural monument. As chair of the Bel Air Association, I believe that one of the strongest assets of our community is our history. This history is exhibited perhaps most profoundly in the great homes built in the early days of Bel Air, homes that define a particular time and place in Los Angeles. 626 Sienna Way is such a place, and it deserves to be preserved and recognized. I was born in Bel Air and knew the house growing up. It is a lovely place and a fine example of the type of home that used to be built in our neighborhoods. Its grand yet refined nature is a fitting reflection of our community. It does not detract from its setting, but instead adds to the surrounding landscape of sensitivity. Houses like 626 Sienna Way not only keep our history intact, but help preserve and recognize the character of Bel Air. I can stop there and leave a copy for your records.
Thank you very much. Is it Stacy Brenner and Laura Dominguez?
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Council members. I'm here as the representative of the property owner, Emine Gabe, also known as Mark Gabe, Armin Gabe, and I am here to not necessarily support the designation, however, but we're here not to not oppose it. And we have been working with the Historic Society as well as AHRC to work to an amicable path to this designation. And I just wanted to come up and just say that we support the CHC recommendation for the designation, and we hope that you guys will pass that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Laura Dominguez.
Good morning, good afternoon, Council members. Laura Dominguez with the LA Conservancy. Very pleased to be speaking today in support of the Historic Cultural Monument application for the Shepherd residents. We strongly agree with the Cultural Heritage Commission's recommendation that the property be designated. It's an exceptional example of the work of architect William J. Gage and masterfully combines the neoclassical style with elements of Regency revival. Taken with the adjoining Hannah Carter Japanese Garden, the property helps reveal multiple layers of history in the Bel Air community over the course of the 20th century and is worthy of designation as a way of celebrating that story. And though both the garden and the residents are being nominated separately, we strongly encourage that this nomination move forward on its current track. So thank you very much for your consideration and for the opportunity to express our support.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or comments? No questions or comments. We will move to approve the HCM nominations. Any objection? Seeing no objection, so ordered. Thank you. Next item number 10, I believe.
Yes, Councilman. Item 10 is an appeal by the property owner, Crystal Clear. This is as it relates to the denial of a haul route application for the property located at 1561 North Blue Jay Way in CD4.
Excellent. Okay. We will hear first from our staff. Our staff is here. City staff, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Cora Johnson, Board of Building and Safety Commission, Board Secretary. The board did have a hearing on December 20th, 2016, and the board denied the haul route and did not accept the categorical exemption for the haul route.
Okay. Was there a recommendation from the city staff to the commission? There is no recommendation. They just get the reports?
Correct.
And they denied it?
Correct.
Okay.
Terry Kaufman, Mississippi City Attorney's Office. The haul route action before the board was under LAMC 917006.7.4.5, and that section provides that if the board determines that the grading activity, including the hauling operation, will endanger the public health, safety, or welfare, it shall deny the request. The council's review is de novo. Because they denied the project, they didn't take action on the CEQA, on the categorical exemption.
Okay, so there was a category exemption, and when you say that the council's review is de novo, that means that we are reviewing it fresh, new, as if without irrespective
Right, you
of...
can look at what's in the record and what was before the board, but also your standards are the same as the board's standards as set forth in the code.
Okay, great, thank you. And just for staff, if you could just briefly let the committee know exactly what was applied for.
They applied for a haul route to export 3,500 cubic yards of earth.
How many?
3,500, 3,500 cubic yards.
And how many trips is that for daily trips? And how does that compare to other similar projects in the area?
Just a second.
On what basis did the commission deny this?
Okay. There were 48 days of hauling, and the
48
finding
what?
was
I'm sorry.
48
Daily trips?
48 days of hauling.
48 days of hauling. And how many trips per day?
They can haul from 9 to 3, so how many?
Staff, you have the floor, staff. So
8 trucks a day.
eight trucks a day. And help us out here. We deal with a number of planning and land use issues on this committee. We're not as familiar with what that means. So how does that compare to other projects in the area? Is it too much? Is it too little? Is it about?
Pretty standard.
It's pretty standard.
Yes.
Okay. For that area. Okay. It's pretty standard.
Right.
And so on what basis did the commission deny the haul route?
The commission did deny the haul route based on the cumulative effect of the additional truck traffic. Right now, there are about 8 projects that have been approved or are currently under construction, and we have another 10 pending that will be coming in that area for haul routes. So they felt that because of the number of construction projects currently in the neighborhood, this additional haul route would just be too much.
All right, thank you.
Terry Kaufman, Mississauga City Attorney's Office. The applicant's appeal statement says 9 trucks per day for a period of 40 days.
Okay, we got 2 different.
Well, that's their document.
That's their document. Okay.
That's their document.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All righty. Any questions for our staff at this time? Yes, Mr. Price.
Mr. Chairman, it seems like we've been going through these hauling route applications with some regularity the last several weeks. Some situations it was 3,500 versus 5,500 yards. Just a couple of questions. I know this is a single-family residential area. People are certainly entitled to peace and quiet. How many trucks would be hauling soil per hour? I know you said there were about 8 a day, so hour would be every couple hours. I'm trying to understand the frequency. And what hours are proposed by the
The hours are from 9 to 3.
And again, how does that
That's about
compare?
6 hours.
As the chair asked, how does that compare with what we've done in the past? Is it consistent or is it totally out of line?
It's not, the haul route itself is not totally out of line. It's because there's so many other projects congregated in that one area. That's why they felt it was unsafe. So if this haul route was just by itself, it would not be out of the ordinary.
You're saying cumulatively, that's why it is
correct.
Reaches a point where it's
correct.
Unacceptable.
That's how they voted, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly will want to support the chair on this, but I think we need to have some consistency. We seem to keep going back and forth on these hauling issues. I know it's not all cut and dried and one size fits all, but I just think developers and the public want a little more
Pardon me?
I said I think the developers and the public want a little more certainty. So I'll certainly defer to your thoughts on this.
Okay. Mr. Dawson, Harris Dawson?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So a question, so you said they reached a certain amount and the committee decided that this is the limit. Was there any way that the applicant would have known in advance, like they're already X number and I'm proposing an additional one? Is there any basis in history or practice that they would have been able to know that?
No. This is new for building and safety and everybody. We just, every time we had another haul route in the Bird Streets, the neighborhood came and they finally said, look, it's just too much.
That makes sense. And so is there any provision in, any formal provision or any practice that would allow the city to manage the timing? In other words, for them to say for projects 1 through 3, you can only do Monday and Tuesday, and projects 3 through 6, you can only do Tuesday is there any practice that would?
There has
or
not
is this
been,
completely unprecedented?
This is completely unprecedented.
Got it. Thank you.
We need some direction.
Got it. Okay.
Seriously. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we will first hear from the appellant, Jason Fritz.
Councilman, how much time are we going to be granted?
5 minutes. You guys are both the appellant and the applicant, correct?
Yeah. Can Jason have 2, and then I'll have 5 for the appellant? But I'd like for Jason to go first.
Yes, you guys have Daniel Freeman, Jason, and then Jason Summers and Fritz.
Yeah, he can go in public comment 2 minutes also.
Okay.
He's a
So what are
property
you
owner. I'd like for him
requesting?
to speak first.
I'm sorry, what was your request? 5 and 2?
So
2 and 5. 2 and 5, that's fine. Your cards, you could do it 5 and then the 2 who are, okay.
Thanks,
Thank you. Hi there, Council. We've been to the Planning Commission 3 times now. I've been working on this project. I'm not a big developer. This is the only project that I'm developing. I live less than a mile away down Doheny. I think what's important to know here is when we heard that there was so much cumulative effect, because that's what everyone's talking about, we went out and we requisitioned a very reputable firm to do a traffic study just to see how much traffic was up on these hills. There are 2 routes into the hills. I just want to bring this to your attention. The red one comes through Doheny and the other one comes up through Sunset Plaza. There are 2 ways. When you get a haul route, you are assigned one of the haul routes. You can't bring your trucks on the other ways. Right now, presently, we're applying for the green haul route to get up to Blue Jay. There are 3 approved haul routes that are in the neighborhood that are not moving forward at this point. Those are the only 3. There's very little hauling going on the hill now. We've done this study on the particular haul route. I'm not going to get into the red haul route because that's not relevant here. But we did it for 4 days, 3 of which were hauling days. We were in a bit of a hurry. On the Wednesday we did it, November 16th, there was 1 haul truck that went up, none went up. On Thursday, only 1 hauling truck went up, and on Friday, only 1 haul truck went down and 2 went up the route. You might want to ask the cumulative effect as far as other trucks that went up the hill. On the Wednesday, there was 1 truck that came down the hill and 4 that went up. 4 on Thursday went up and 4 went down. These are not hauling trucks. Friday, 4 trucks went up, 5 went down. And on Saturday, it was 1 truck went up and 2 went up, 1 went down. So as sympathetic as I am, and I'm very sympathetic, I live in the neighborhood and I want to be a good neighbor, but basically there isn't that much traffic going on in the 3 routes that are presently approved are not using it, and there are no plans. I'd like to get in. We have 40 days, get in, do the hauling, and be done with it, and have as little impact on the neighborhood as possible. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Freeman here.
Thank you, council members. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for hearing this. This really is Daniel Freeman, Jeffrey Mangles, Butler Mitchell here on behalf of the appellant. This really is unprecedented, and I think that's an important thing to bring up. One clarification from what Ms. Johnson brought up. It's my understanding, and if it's clarified, that's fine with me, but it's my understanding that there was a recommendation from the commission, and they actually recommended the haul route with conditions. And that was the initial recommendation to the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners, was that there will be a recommendation, and here is the haul route, and this is the conditions that should apply to it, in order to, and this is key, in order to assure that it is a safe haul. And so ultimately, staff found it to be safe, DOT found it to be safe, and so it was recommended to the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners. I want to just note that this is, as was noted, although it is a big house, this is one of the small projects in the hills. It's built on a standard street. It's a small haul compared to the other hauls in line to be hauled. It is all by right. It complies with the BHO. It complies with the BMO. And it's, as was brought up, 9 trucks a day for 40 days, ultimately pretty fast. Now, this is not a rebuke of the community. I think it's not fair to this applicant and this appellant to say that this is him versus them or us versus them. Ultimately, there are issues in every community that we got to deal with, but it also comes down to what is right, how the process is implemented, and making sure everyone is treated fairly. There are a lot of impacts on Doheny, so we've understood. Doheny is a haul route that is commonly used up into those hills. This project, as Jason mentioned, the owner mentioned, does not take Doheny. The last we understood, there is not a single haul route currently active on the route being proposed. And as I mentioned, this is built on a standard street. Our applicant agreed to a slew of additional conditions that were not required as part of the DBS haul route approval. He voluntarily agreed to try and meet with the community. He agreed to all these additional concessions. He agreed to conditions that would apply throughout the entire project, including parking restrictions, including time restrictions. He went above and beyond, and that was actually the one comment that the DBS commissioner who approved said in the hearing. He said, I haven't seen an applicant go this far in my entire time here on this commission. So this is a good actor here. What happened was, the reason why they denied was ultimately a CD4 letter to the commission. And the CD4 letter essentially said, quote, ask that a moratorium be put into place regarding all haul routes in Council District 4. That's what was requested of the DBS commission. And so, of course, what happened? DBS denied. Now, what do they say they denied on? So they claim they denied because of cumulative impacts. They say the haul route approval will endanger the health and safety and welfare of the public based on the cumulative effect of additional truck traffic. Now, this is not a finding for 2 reasons. First of all, it's clearly implementing the moratorium. It's this call for a moratorium, this council member, this council office asking for a complete stop of processing of permits. So that's clearly what's happening. But it's also not a finding because there's no threshold. This is the issue. We'd love to work and come up with conditions that work for everyone, for the community, for the council, for the city. But there's no threshold here. Where does the cumulative effect begin or end? There's no statement of that. There's no clarity for that. It's exactly what was being brought up before, is that there's no number that our client could possibly know, that this applicant could possibly know, that now it's time, now it's cumulative. There's no evidence that there's a safety issue. We've submitted traffic studies. We've done an analysis of the traffic collisions on the streets. There's been no showing that there's been recent problems with hauling in those hills, other than people being frustrated with the noise and all the other construction activity. There's no basis in law for denial. There needs to be some showing of an actual physical endangerment to the public health. That's not in the record. It's also not fair. It's not fair to this applicant who, as was noted before, started this process, invested a lot of money, purchased property, took out loans, who may go bankrupt, have to go to court, all this, just because trying to defer legislative action ultimately. We understand maybe there's a need for legislative action. That's where this should be dealt with, not on just denying people as they come to a commission. I also want to get this across in conclusion. This is not really a district issue, and I think that's what's critical here. First off, it's a real tough precedent to have here, where commissions are being told not to hear applications based on council districts. These are independent agencies that should be operating, on the discretion of the code. They need to be implementing the code. I'll wrap up. Finally, what the council officer is calling for is in their letter was they want a mitigating negative declaration. They want this applicant to not be subject to the categorical exemption. That doesn't end anywhere. That's citywide. If you find that this project requires an MND, any place where there's a hillside in all over the city, suddenly it's opened up to a question of, oh, well, maybe because there's traffic in the area that we can no longer give it a categorical exemption. And then I'll hit my last point. And then finally, the liability created by all these actions are not subject to just one district. That's citywide. And then I'll just conclude with, and ultimately, our client is also a constituent of the city, and this type of process is going to put the guy in a very tough position and will, cause a lot of hardship on other people as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Alan Evans, Susie Lewis, David Lewis. Each public speaker has 1 minute. Alan Evans, Susie Lewis, and David Lewis. Not here? Okay. Luis? Okay.
Chairman Huizar and council members, thank you so much for hearing our voices today. To clarify something from earlier, prior to 2013, 3,500 cubic yards of export was not at all normal. As neighbors, we've been rallying together for over 2 years to try to fix the problems posed by construction in our area. We've attended hall route hearings and met with officials, as well as representatives of the investors that seek to build in our neighborhood. They've known of our problems. We have 2 goals. 1, to get better enforcement of hall route conditions, as well as general construction codes and traffic rules. And 2, to get the city to consider the cumulative impact of the construction in our neighborhood, especially those projects that are exporting hundreds of truckloads of earth. As to the first, we have spent 2 years trying to confront problems mostly on our own. We have chased down offenders, documented violations, and notified the proper enforcement agencies, and figuring out who to call requires a wealth of knowledge already. We can't continue this way. We need the city to take hold of the problem and keep an eye on the sites. And please watch the video showing Blue Jay Way today. Thank you.
Thank you. You were Ellen? Ellen Evans, okay.
I'm Lisa Tornadin, that's on the list a little bit later, but I have to leave.
No, I'm sorry. Well, I have to go through these speakers now.
My speaker card is in there. It's just
Okay, if you could speak to the city clerk. Right now, I'm going through the people, the cards that were presented to me, and then we'll get to you. Thank you.
My card is in there.
Okay.
Lisa Tornadin.
I'm sorry. If you could speak, if you are not Ellen Evans, Susie Lewis, or David Lewis, please speak to the city clerk. Otherwise, we have people coming up your turn to speak about a number of issues. Are either of you here? Is Alan Evans just spoke, Susie Lewis or David Lewis here? No? How was that a mistake? I just go by the cards that are given to me, but we cannot allow people to come up to the microphone and ask to speak at that time. We have a number of people who come every meeting here, and they will do the same if we allow that to happen. We're trying to be consistent, especially you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman, if you keep making those noises and disrupt this meeting, you know the rules. That's your first warning. On your second warning, we're going to ask you to be escorted out of this meeting. And please take down that sign that you have. We do not permit signs in this. Okay, well, take that down, whatever it is. It could be conceived as a sign. Thank you. Luis Pardo, William Mitchell, and Yves Missala. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon. Luis Pardo. I'm a resident of Rising Glen Road, just about a block from this project. And I'm here because I love my neighborhood. It's a wonderful neighborhood, and apparently a lot of people love it too. And the reason that I'm here today is because I'm really concerned about the truck route. It's going to be coming right in front of my house. And the number of trucks that we receive every day is a constant parade of trucks. They do cause a lot of damage. They break a lot of water mains. They break a lot of the sidewalks and other problems that cause. Right now we have 18 projects going on at the same time. And that is just a huge number of projects happening at the same time. Most of our homes were built in the 50s and 60s. And they're great, but you know what? A lot of people can make some changes to those homes. This home This place that they want to destroy is currently a home. It's already built. It's the home that's right next to the Beatles' home, the old Beatles. So they used to live there. There's a song that was named after them. But they want to destroy it, and they want to take away 3,500 cubic yards of soil. That is not necessary to do something, a change like this.
Thank you. Your time
Thank
is
you.
up. Thank you. William Mitchell, and then Yves Missala.
Hello. I'm Willie Mitchell. I'm here representing a homeowner in the Bird Street neighborhood. I'm here to voice support for the haul route because it meets all the applicable safety standards, and I feel it should be approved. I speak on behalf of a local homeowner as well as someone who personally drives these streets on a daily basis, and I've never had an issue with safety on this route and with the truck traffic. So I'd like to ask the council, what are the rules for building a new home in this neighborhood if an applicant meets all the applicable safety standards yet is denied a permit? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yves, then Madeline McFadden Nunez, and Allison Taylor.
Good afternoon. My name is Yves Missala. I would humbly request that this appeal is denied. The expediter claims to work with the neighbors when the opposite is true. This was denied by the board, and the expediter is placing another one in the Bird Streets in front of the board next Tuesday the 17th, which hauls twice the amount of dirt as this one. Crest, the expediter, could not care less about the neighborhood safety. 1/4 of Blue Jay is already under construction at the same time. When is enough enough? Is it when people die due to construction traffic? As residents, we are desperate for some coordination of project, supervision on our streets, and accountability by contractors. We have volunteered hundreds of hours to accomplish this, not because we are expecting a payout. We are motivated by nothing more than to protect our families. Every one of us here today has a story of near hit with construction vehicles, and we know something real bad could happen any day. We beg you to protect your constituents. Deny this appeal until the city addresses this out-of-control construction.
Thank you. Madeline McFadden Nunez here? Not here? Oh, there. And then Allison Taylor. Welcome.
Councilman, considering this project in isolation from others is believing that you could take one car off the 405 and improve traffic. Unfortunately, the city has no handle right now on the cumulative impact of all these concurrent construction projects when it comes to hillside stability and erosion, air quality, street integrity, safety, and the environment. Most wildlife, even the birds once plentiful in the area, are now gone. How can you approve more construction when our pleas for something as basic and simple as traffic and parking enforcement go unheeded? Developers are binging on this neglect and pushing the limits. Let's face it, with more modest plans, this project would be under construction now. And that speaks volumes about what's driving this. Councilman Ruth is one of the few city leaders with the political will and courage to try to tackle this issue. Please give him the only thing he needs right now, which is some time, and deny this appeal until there's a comprehensive plan for this area.
Thank you. Allison Taylor and Stella Gray.
Hi, my name is Allison Taylor. I live on St. Ives Drive. I'm unlucky because I live next to a mammoth spec home that looks like a hotel. I've experienced and witnessed numerous instances where construction trucks have blocked or come very close to an accident. Now another spec home is being developed behind me. I am worried every time I leave my house that I will be delayed or at risk of an accident. I urge you to uphold the decision by Building and Safety to deny this haul route. Our neighborhood can't take any more construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Stella Gray, Douglas Ruth.
Yes, dear council members, we hope you had a chance to familiarize yourself with the content of the package that was submitted for your review earlier today via email and physically about an hour ago. The documents paint a clear picture of cumulative impact of construction on our neighborhood. Today, we appeal to you to support BBSC's decision not to consider an isolated case of a single proposed construction project, but to take a comprehensive approach. We're asking you to use your power as elected officials to stand up for public safety. We understand the pressure of facing a powerful law firm representing the owners, but it may not be as much pressure to deal with as if real lives were lost due to a traffic accident or to inability of emergency vehicles to pass through. And I'm not talking about lives of the residents only. Just 1 second more. I'm not talking about lives of the residents only, but about lives of the employees of various city agencies that maintain infrastructure in our streets. Our neighborhood has a life-threatening disease. You are in a position to recognize our plight and take actions to save our health, perhaps our very lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Douglas Routh, Stella Jeong.
Thank you. I grew up on Doheny Drive. It was a calm residential street at the time. Today, if you go up Doheny Drive, it is heavy residential parking almost all the way up on one side, which narrows it to the point where it has become both an inconvenience and a danger for heavy traffic, particularly truck traffic, coming up and down. I was up behind a bulldozer, a flatbed with a bulldozer on it and a dump truck. Took me almost 5 minutes to go several hundred feet. This is a picture of what is happening up in the Doheny area, and we urge your assistance and cooperation in mitigating this danger and this nuisance. Thank you.
Thank you. Stella Jeong, Oliver Tamavandi. Welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Huizar and fellow council members, thank you. We urge you to support the decision of the Building and Safety Commissioners as stewards of our public safety to uphold the denial of this haul route. Their decision was based on the finding that the, quote, haul route approval will endanger the health, safety, and welfare of the public based on the cumulative effect of the additional truck traffic. We cannot agree more. Since 2014, the explosion of development, and that's 41 haul truck projects which have been approved or are pending in the Doheny area, has put an incredible strain on our community. The Doheny bird streets have turned into the Wild West and have placed the welfare of the families, workers, and anyone else who ventures into our area at risk. We want safe streets, we want traffic management, and we want project coordination, and most of all, we want enforcement. We want comprehensive solutions, and overturning the BBC denial will only make the cup runneth over even more. To quote President Ambialatis, enough is enough, and the community has been speaking about this since 2014, and this is the first time since 2013 that a haul route has been denied in all of LA. Could that be because the BBSC has come to the realization that lives are important too? Maybe
you.
In this case, more than building. Let them do what they believe is the right decision, and thank you.
Thank you. Oliver Tamavandi, Nick Karos, and Lisa Tornadin.
Good afternoon. I'm Oliver Tamavandi. I'm a property owner on Blue Jay Way, and I'm here to support the project and subsequent appeal. While I do empathize with my fellow neighbors, I do feel this applicant has gone about this project the correct way. He's fulfilled all the requirements, and I drive the street on a regular basis, and it's okay. I also want to state that I find it a bit unfair that, it's like playing a game of basketball, and then, at the end of the fourth quarter, the team who's going to lose is saying, well, let's change the rules now because we don't like the outcome. I understand that it comes with some inconvenience, but I think that, the rules have been set, and they've played by the rules, and I think that the project has been approved, and I think that should set a precedent for future projects as well. If they've met the requirements, I think it should move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Karos and Lisa Tornadin.
Hello, my name is Nick Karras, and I'm a resident of the Bird Streets. I live very close proximity to this development. I am in support of this haul route. I'm not sure how many hauls are going on right now at this moment, but I think it seems to be a reasonable amount as I'm driving the streets on a regular basis. I have no affiliation with the developer, no affiliation with anybody involved with this project. I just want to voice my opinion. I think what should be done should be implementation of safe and responsible building. Maybe some designated hours for the hauling, designated days for the hauling, maybe a particular queue for various projects so that you can manage the traffic and they don't all hit on the same days. And if you have to wait a little longer, you do. Flagmen, dust control. In conclusion, I just think we need to make some rules which are responsible, in which responsible developers can manage them.
Thank you. Lisa Tornadin.
Hello. I'm going to quote numbers from the traffic report that was done by the group that the developer engaged. I'm going to give you 4 numbers directly from this report, and I can cite the page numbers. The numbers are 35, 256, 2,850, and 2. This report surveyed or reviewed 35 projects which they say do not represent the total number of active or planned projects in the Bird Street areas. These 35 projects require 256 haul truck trips per day, which is over and above the estimated 2,850 average trips per day by other vehicles, including cars, vans, cement mixers, food trucks, etc., which can only use 2 streets, Doheny Drive and Rising Glen, that traverse a neighborhood of private family-owned homes. So we are talking about over 3,000 trucks and other vehicles every workday. I'll conclude by saying that I called the fire department this morning and asked them if they've had any issues so far. They have not, but they were very happy that we are petitioning this commission, because in the event that they could not get to a 911 emergency or a fire or health catastrophe, that could be a very big problem that they do not want to face. Thank you.
Thank you. Herman Quang Tran.
There are no easy answers here, but the grudge report says that as long as you keep digging in Los Angeles, you have to honor the decision made by the committee. No one gives a fuck about the neighborhoods no more. It's all about progress. Let's build. Let them keep digging their fucking hills and their lands and build what they have to build. That's your decision, Mr. Chair. If not, nothing's going to happen. We build Grand. How many truckloads off of Grand? The people protest. You went over them anyways. Sustain. Motion denied. Well, I'm against the denial. Allow the developer to develop and finish the project so we can do our daily chores in our neighborhood and go about business. Because if anyone cared about planning, they would have been coming to all these meetings, like the issues on Broadway, and resolved all the problems. But instead, let's just keep digging and keep the trucks rolling. Choo-choo!
Quang Tran. Julia Duncan from Council District 4.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is Quang Tran. I'm the project civil engineer. I'm here to answer any technical questions you may have. The only piece of information I could add that you haven't already heard is that technically the project will export 3,153 cubic yards to be exact. That is approximately 35 less truck trips. We applied for slightly more to account for different variables outside of our control, but that gives you an idea of what the project applicant is applying for. Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot to add. With the reduction in truck trips, it's my experience that the hauling could be handled in approximately 1 month's time. It's an inconvenience, but it's a 1 month window, and it could be handled very quickly. Thank you.
Julia Duncan from Council District 4.
Good afternoon, council members. Happy holidays, happy new year. Welcome back. Thank you for your time this afternoon. On December 20th, 2016, the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners heard this item. They also heard this item on October 18th. I was in attendance at that meeting. They heard it again on December 6th. My colleague and Senior Field Deputy Catherine Landers was in attendance at that meeting. They gave consideration to this application. On the 20th, the board took the following action. They denied the notice of exemption, and they denied the application to export the 3,500 cubic yards. Protecting the public's health, safety, and welfare is of top priority. We respectfully request that you deny the appeal and affirm the decision of the BBSC in denying the haul route in order to do so based on the cumulative effect of additional truck traffic. A long-term fix and approach to the impacts of construction is desirable, but we currently must address these impacts in cases on an individual basis. We look forward to the long-term solution as presented in the Hillside Construction Regulation Zone and possible future application to CD4 Hillside communities. That new zone will be heard, we hope, sometime this month in the Plum Committee. It's going to be applied to the expiring Bel Air ICO area. It was originated out of specifically grading and haul route concerns in that community. For this specific case, the California Environmental Quality Act requires that an assessment of cumulative impacts of projects be evaluated and considered for necessary mitigation measures. The position of the council member is that the acceptance of the notice of exemption and approval of the haul route application would undoubtedly exacerbate the issues in the area and violate CEQA due to an inadequate appraisal and evaluation of the cumulative impacts in absence of environmental analysis. The notice of exemption, Article 3, Classes 3 and 32, Subcategory 1, should be denied because it falls under several exceptions listed in Article 19 of the CEQA guidelines. Specifically, 1561 Blue Jay Way is located in a particularly sensitive environment, and the impacts of the hauling may be significant. The subject site is within a fault zone, a very high fire hazard severity zone, and hillside area, all of which contribute to the sensitivity of the area, and it cannot be known if potential impacts are less than significant because, frankly, there's been no evaluation done. Additionally, the cumulative impacts of successive projects in the Bird Streets is significant and negates the proposed haul route from being categorically exempt. Both of those are exceptions to exemptions in Article 19. I do want to mention real quickly that under the current BHO, 1,600 cubic yards would be the maximum by right allowed for an RE 15-1 zone. If you do the formula, it would be 990 cubic yards. This applicant is requesting 3,500. They're able to do that because currently everything under the footprint of a house is exempt, so it's not counted. We're addressing that in the updated BHO. I provided a packet for you of a map of the current hills construction projects that are happening in this area, and just to give you an overview of the quantity. There's 16 approved haul routes currently. There's 22 construction projects that don't have any haul routes but are still happening in the immediate vicinity, and there's 8 in the pipeline. The Board of Building and Safety Commissioners at their numerous hearings for this proposed project said it was up to council, and that's what we're trying to do, address it long term. But I also want to direct your attention to a map provided to us by the Department of Water and Power of the F-grade pipes in the hillsides, and that is another reason that this additional haul route will impact the cumulative effects. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions for the council office? No. Thank you. I have a question for the city attorney's office. This was applied through a categorical exemption. In other instances, do we require these haul routes to have an MND, or do we usually do categorical exemptions?
Terry Kaufman, Messiah City Attorney's Office. Each project is going to be analyzed on its own merits. So if a categorical exemption is appropriate for one, it may not be appropriate for another. So you can't really say. I believe that MNDs have been used for haul routes, but so have categorical exemptions. So. Okay,
and it depends on the and who recommends which option to use? It's up to the applicant.
The planning department looks at the environmental analysis and makes that report to the department.
And usually recommends which approach to take, right?
Yes.
To the applicant. Now, have we analyzed the cumulative impacts for haul routes in the past?
Can you just give me 1 second?
Charles Soule, Deputy City Attorney. There was a cumulative analysis in the categorical exemption that was proposed.
Oh, so there was a cumulative analysis. What was the result of that analysis?
That if the appropriate mitigation measures were adopted, that they would be properly mitigated.
Okay, and that was my question I started off with, which was there an analysis or there's no recommendation by staff, but at least the analysis was completed, asking for certain mitigations be in place to avoid the cumulative impacts, correct?
It's my understanding, and Ms. Johnson can clarify if she'd like to come forward, I think the recommendation was adopt the categorical exemption and adopt the haul route.
Okay, that wasn't made clear when I asked my question earlier. So there was a recommendation from staff to the commissioners to adopt a categorical exemption.
At the hearing.
At the hearing. And a
hearing.
cumulative impact analysis was made by staff, and it found that with certain mitigations, the cumulative impacts could be dealt with.
Based on city planning's recommendation. Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So that wasn't made clear to me. So under the threshold of the CEQA and our own local rules, does this pass muster to deal with the cumulative impacts? Or, as was raised by public testimony, in your opinion, does this violate cumulative impacts under CEQA?
That's really a question for this committee. Looking at substantial evidence and looking
Okay,
at the
so what's-
materials that are that were provided to you, including the notice of exemption and the information in the notice of exemption comments that were made here today.
Okay. And
On both sides.
Correct. And in our current history with this commission, have we denied other categorical exemptions for haul routes?
No.
No, we haven't, right? We have had them to be they've been an issue where we have not contemplated other projects, and then another one comes. I've been in this committee where, like in this one, they come up and, well, we didn't take into account other haul routes that are happening. Why didn't we? In this case, did we take into account other haul routes that are taking place, and how many were there? In the
Currently?
Yes, currently.
Currently, there are 3 haul routes that are approved in that area, and there are about 8 projects that are under construction right now.
Okay. So 3 are approved, 8 under construction. In your cumulative impact analysis, you took those into account? All of them?
That would be city planning. We just take city planning's categorical exemption analysis.
Well, I don't have that report before me, but some report must have been given to the commission to make that determination.
There is the notice of exemption and information on the back of that. That's in your packet.
Charles Soule, City Attorney. In the analysis of the categorical exemption, there's a mention of specific haul routes.
All the haul routes. So, because earlier you told me there was an analysis on the cumulative impacts, and the recommendation was made that with mitigations they could be mitigated and dealt with. And now I'm asking, in that analysis, were all the haul routes taken into account? Because I've been in this committee several times when all the haul routes in a certain jurisdiction have not been taken into account.
They're listed. They're listed here. Several of them on Blue Jay Way.
By address and by time frame?
So they were part of the analysis. Who wrote that report? They're not here?
Deputy City Attorney Monica Castillo. Just to clarify, we're looking at the narrative for the categorical exemption prepared by city planning. That is Exhibit D to the submission by the appellant here. And it does discuss other pending haul routes and their time frames. And I also want to make clear that this does not introduce mitigation measures. Mitigation measures apply to MNDs. Because this is a categorical exemption, it's relying on the regulatory environment to alleviate any dangers caused by these concurrent haul routes. So I'd be careful to not to confuse mitigation measures with what's stated in the narrative of the
Right, but
categorical exemption.
it does have conditions, though, that were imposed on, that were recommended for approval.
Okay, because cumulative impacts, I think, is a term of art that's used when an EAR is required, and I wasn't sure if it's done for MNDs, but certainly not for categorical exemptions. We are exempting it, and then full analysis is not required. So that's why I'm trying to figure out is why are we applying this term of art of cumulative impacts to an analysis that's not required, and then I'm being told it was done. So
to add some clarification, there are two bases to assess this haul route request. One, you have to compare it to what CEQA requires, and then two, the standard that's in our code that requires a haul route to be denied if it presents a danger to the public health, welfare, safety. There are exceptions to categorical exemptions under CEQA. So if there were cumulative impacts caused by successive projects of a similar nature, that is an exception to categorical exemption.
yes.
So however, that's one tool you can use to rule on this appeal. Building and safety, the commissioners did not use that to base their decision. What they based their decision on was the municipal code authority of the commissioners to protect the public health, welfare, and safety. They did not rely on the cumulative effects for purposes of CEQA, but as it presents a dangerous condition given the actual state of facts.
Got it, okay. And it is at their discretion to do so, as it is under our
correct.
discretion to do
Correct,
so,
based on
and find
substantial
that
evidence
because of other
presented.
projects, but we're using this term cumulative impact that doesn't apply in this case. We could make it apply all the time if we make it policy. We're not there yet, and if we want to get there, we should, because there's a lot of confusion in this committee a lot of times, but we don't take into account all these other routes, so we should probably make that a policy if we want to. But it was at the discretion of the commission to deny it based on cumulative impacts, but it's not the same term as we've been hearing through the arguments made here that we're using in CEQA, because it's not the same standard, correct?
Right, but because you're hearing this de novo, you don't have to defer to what the board did.
Yeah.
You can reassess the situation anew.
Okay.
And agree with them for the same reasons based on evidence presented to you today or then, or you can make a separate CEQA finding that the board did not make.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, committee members?
Charles Sewell, City Attorney, and just to clarify, the board borrowed the phrase cumulative impact, but they weren't necessarily doing a CEQA analysis. They were doing a public safety
I got
analysis.
you. And so now under that kind of, there's really no, I mean, it's a different standard, and I think it's a lot more leverage, a lot more latitude now to find cumulative impacts, because you don't have to go through some CEQA requirements as to what that is. Here, what did they find was the impact of all the haul routes, the additional traffic, or what were the impacts?
The impacts were the additional truck traffic on an already congested street with all of the other traffic that's currently in the neighborhood, with the other construction trucks and the other existing haul routes.
Okay, and the applicants are saying that there's the roads that will be used for these truck routes are not being used by the other haul routes. Is that accurate? So how would the impact? I mean, I'm trying to connect what the impacts are. If the routes or the routes here are two roads that are not being used by any other development in the area, how are those cumulative impacts?
You may want to ask the permit applicant, the appellant, for details on what the concurrent traffic is at common intersections of all these different routes.
Yeah, what are the common intersections that we will see the impacts?
So if you have a second, there's two people who I'd like to speak. One person who has done an analysis of all the projects that were submitted to you by the council office, which I think is relevant because that document was submitted in order to show how many projects there are and why it matters. The other person is our traffic consultant who provided a study and has some additional information for you today. So if we could just have 2 minutes per. They submitted cards, actually. I don't know what happened to public comment, but I would defer to those two. Can we have
Who are
those?
they?
Pardon me?
Who?
One is a project consultant who has worked on this, who looked at each of the projects that were submitted by the council office on that memo that you have in front of you, who can speak on where they are in the project.
Sure. Are they? Yeah, have them come up.
And we'll keep it 2 minutes each.
We'll have 1 minute each. Thank you.
1 minute each? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And they did submit cards, by the way, Councilman.
Yeah, okay. So the question is that we have this broad latitude in what is cumulative impacts. I mean, we're not bound by what CEQA says are cumulative impacts, but the argument is being made that there are a lot of other haul routes in this area, 3 of which have been approved, and I think 5 other active ones. And so where are the intersections where you see this additional, these cumulative impacts? But at the same time, you know, if it's only neighbors in the area that don't want this traffic, this additional traffic in their specific roads, let's call it what it is, and say, hey, we don't like these trucks coming down our road. And that's also a basis to deny the but that's what it is. So what are the cumulative impacts here? Where do they intersect, if at all?
There's 2 thoroughfare for the Bird Streets, which is what this area is. There's one down Doheny, which is a narrower street, which more construction traffic is going down. And then there is Rising Glen, which
and those will be the 2 routes. Are there other development projects using those routes?
No, there's currently 0 active haul route projects going down either street. There's construction, but the haul routes for all of them are completed.
Now, do they meet at some common, there must be a larger artery someplace where they all meet, some larger streets.
Well, they all go down to Sunset, but there is,
Sunset.
So they either come down at Blue Jay Way, they either go east towards Rising Glen or west towards Doheny. This project on Blue Jay goes east towards Rising Glen.
Okay.
Thrasher to Rising Glen.
Okay.
But there are currently
and just to repeat, you said there are, on the route that you have marked green on your map, you said there are 0
active haul routes. So there are some that are, so out of the 16 total projects that were presented by the council office, some projects are completed almost at certificate of occupancy. Actually, some of them are certificate of occupancy. So there's less than 16. There's 2 projects that have not started their haul route that have approved haul routes that are on Blue Jay as well.
And
they take down Rising Glen, Thrasher to Rising Glen, the green, which is the same. Correct.
Okay, and how big are those streets coming down?
So Blue Jay Way is actually a standard street with 26-foot right-of-way. And Rising Glen is as well.
So both of those streets are standard
Yeah, it
streets?
goes through Thrasher for one part of it, which is substandard. So Blue Jay is standard, Rising Glen is standard, Thrasher is substandard.
Okay. All right, and the Doheny?
Doheny, this region of Doheny towards the north end is substandard. Where it becomes straight, it is standard.
Okay.
But that's not part of this
Yeah,
proposal.
because there has been concern about a number of substandard roads in these hillsides and having these huge trucks go by, and that's been of concern.
Blue Jay is a dead end. The entire neighborhood is a dead end. There's 2 ingress and egress. It's Doheny and Sunset Plaza Rising Glen. They all lead to dead ends. Blue Jay Way is a dead end street, and it leads down it's a standard street to one substandard street, Thrasher, to a standard street, Rising Glen. Over on the Doheny side, there's a ton of substandard, very narrow streets that are on the Doheny side. Our project has asked for every mitigation measure and has not said no to a single mitigation measure on this project.
Okay. Thank you.
This is the traffic engineer.
Hello, my name is Miguel Nunez. We submitted the description of the truck analysis. I can speak to the content of this. Basically what we did is we went out there, we counted data. We then obtained the information on proposed potential haul routes. The number that was thrown out earlier, 256, is the total number of truck trips that we calculated by both on Doheny and Rising Glen. Not all of that would be on Rising Glen. And additionally, this was a conservative analysis in that we assumed that all those haul trips would happen concurrently, which is not actually the case on the calendar. Speaking to the process, one of the reasons this is so difficult with relation to cumulative impacts, I do a lot of traffic studies in the city of Los Angeles, is that when it comes to, there is no cumulative impact standard or threshold with respect to construction traffic as to what constitutes a safety issue or a hazard on that roadway. I've submitted for the record, we did a collision analysis subsequent to the building and safety hearing. What we found was that in the last 5 years of available data, which is 2011 to 2015, it does not include 2016, and 2014 and 2015 data is provisional. But based on that publicly available data through the state database, which is maintained by CHP and local law enforcement agencies, we found that during that period of time, there were a total of 38 collisions in the neighborhood. 11 of those happened during haul hours. 2 of those happened on the haul route. 0 of those on the haul route involved a truck. So it's very difficult to speak to the cumulative condition or whether that is in fact a cumulative impact, to borrow that term, because that threshold or standard does not exist. And so we've documented the percentage of traffic that this hauling activity could constitute. It would be no more than, for this project alone, no more than several percent, up to 4% on Rising Glen, which, again, there's no standard, but that's the number for the purpose of disclosure and discussion. And again, there have been 2 collisions. None of those involved a truck on the Rising Glen route.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So let me ask the Council District 4 representative, Ms. Duncan. He's here. Yeah. So based on the testimony today, it appears that we've seen a number of cases like this, that this committee has put in additional mitigation factors because there wasn't a full analysis as to the cumulative impacts using in a general sense, that other projects weren't taken into account, and we've seen the lack of that analysis by the time it gets to us. So the questions were being raised whether that existed here or not, and the testimony was made. Earlier you made some testimony. Do you, anything you want to add to that? Or
I think the argument that was being made by the appellant today, stating that you can't evaluate it because there's not a threshold, and if there's no evaluation, you can't say there's an impact, is an illogical argument. I think the fact that there hasn't been an analysis shows that you can't determine whether there is a cumulative impact or not. I think common sense would dictate, if you look at the numbers and the quantity of cubic yards that are being graded, in addition to the F rating of LADWP. I can quote DWP sent us this statement. So the conditions of our water infrastructure in the Bird Streets area, all of the red lines on the map represent the worst pipes in the city, the pipes that the Department of Water and Power consider having a very high likelihood of failure. Given the high density of old water pipes within the Bird Street neighborhood, LADWP would advise against using these streets as haul routes for heavy trucks, as they may further compromise our water infrastructure. We understand the need and necessity for development. This is a single-family home. We don't want to be extraordinarily punitive to this individual property owner, but there is a tipping point. Had there been an additional environmental analysis like an MND, I think we could take those items into consideration and make a better evaluation about the mitigation measures that would be necessary. We don't have mitigation measures right now because there wasn't an MND.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Okay. I'm sorry, ma'am. There is no back and forth here. It's just the rules we have in this committee. So unless a committee member invites someone to come up and speak after public comment, there's no back and forth. It's the rules. I apologize. Any other questions or comments on this? And that applies to everybody, sir.
Do we get rebuttal as appellant?
No,
No,
that's,
okay.
yeah, thank you. Lawyers in this room always do that. We want the rebuttal. This is a legislative process. You know, there is a huge room, there's a need for us to improve our processes on haul routes in the city and to take into account those cumulative impacts and just speaking about them in the general sense. And the commission did have, in my opinion, the discretion to either approve or deny on that basis, and as do we here. And I think on my end, we take into account what weighs heavily here as well is not only public testimony, but also the local council office who works with the local communities and applicants and everyone else there to come up with some solutions. But based on that, I'd move that we sustain the determination of the Board of Building and Safety and deny the appeal. Do we need a voice vote or any objections to that? No. Okay. We'll find that's a motion with no objections, so ordered. And any other items on the agenda?
No, Council.
That's it? Public comment? No public comment cards? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.